Hare Krishna, and welcome everybody to another session of Prabhupada Memoirs. And today I'm so thrilled that I have His Grace Mahatma Prabhu, who will be talking to us about Srila Prabhupada. He's a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada and an initiating guru in our movement. He is a person that has done a plethora of services throughout his time in Krishna consciousness, from being a Harinam Sankirtan leader, to a temple president, a college preacher, congregational development head, and various other educational projects, offline and online. You can check these out at thesattva-way.com. And he is known for his recorded and live kirtans, most notably for his recording of Brahma Samhita. Also very well known for his workshops, which we'll be talking about later, which include topics like forgiveness, marriage, humility, and yes, also japa. So I'm so honored to be speaking to him today. And without further ado, let's welcome His Grace Mahatma Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
How are you?
I have a half a voice, but I think that's enough to make it for the next hour. So
We can hear you, and
I didn't want to miss the opportunity. So I think I'll be okay.
Thank you, Guru. No, and we're going to be talking about, because you're a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and you've had such nice pastimes and memories of him. And it was just the ISKCON Mayapur team, Mayapur TV, really wanted to have you on today to discuss some of those and to get your perspective on these pastimes. So first of all, I know that you joined, you came across Krishna consciousness in 1969 when there was a book that you came across, which was the famously known Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita, but I didn't know what it was. But I was attracted to it.
And how did that come about?
Yeah. Well, first, I'd like to say that my first contact with devotees was very sparse. That was in 1967. I saw a devotee in Haight-Ashbury. I was visiting there. But no devotee. And I had visited Haight-Ashbury 1 week after Prabhupada had been there. And I didn't find that out until I read the Lilamrita. But I never saw the devotees and doties or anything. But I saw a devotee walking around, shaved head Sika. It was hard to miss because everyone had long hair. And then I grew up in Los Angeles, and that was one of the main temples. And it turns out that the first real temple they established was 6 blocks from my house. So occasionally I would see devotees chanting japa in my neighborhood. And also devotees were going out every day to Hollywood. And, in those days, that's where we'd all go. Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, and we just drive around. So I saw the devotees there. But the interesting thing that happened was when I was 19, I was had transferred to Berkeley to go to school. Mm-hmm. And I was on a search to find the truth. And so one day I was in a bookstore and I saw Bhagavad Gita. I had no idea what it is. And Super Soul said, read this book. And then maybe it was the next day, I don't remember. I was registering for classes. And in those days, you couldn't register online. You just go to the class. And there was a devotee, Ridananda Maharaj, who was then Howard. He was sitting at a little card table and he had a sign, Bhagavad Gita, 4 units. And he had arranged with a professor that he could teach Bhagavad Gita, and the professor would authorize that as an outside study course. So I got to study Bhagavad Gita as an accredited course. It was I think it was considered a philosophy course. And Hansaduta and Ridananda Maharaj, they were teaching it. And so there was that book. And the fortunate thing is I didn't have money to buy the book in the bookstore because it wasn't Prabhupada's. So I kind of felt like growing up near the temple, and then I go to college and there's a temple there and I'm always around devotees. You kind of feel like you're just taking off from where you left off in your last life, and Krishna just he's just making it easy for you, right? It didn't have to do much.
Wow, and that's how you came across from that bookstore came across the Bhagavad Gita, and that's it. It was then after that it started to spiral in, I wouldn't say out of control. It was in the right direction, right?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, I think the best way to describe this is like, do you ever conceive of a product, but you don't know it exists? But you say, I wonder if there's a product that does this and this, because there should really be one. And you're searching online, and you're going to stores. And then you're in a store and you go, oh my Govinda, somebody invented that product. There it is. So when I read Bhagavad Gita, it was like I was looking for the truth, and I was reading it. To me, it was like, oh, here's the product I was looking for. It's answering all my questions. I never read a book that answered all my questions. I never met anybody that. So it was very exciting. It was like, oh my Govinda. And so semesters in that university are 10 weeks. So the course lasted 10 weeks. And I read Bhagavad Gita twice in those 10 weeks. And I think by the 5th or 6th week that I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to become a devotee. This is everything I want. And I have really no need to stay in university. I had no ambition to stay there. So that Bhagavad Gita kind of, and Kirtan, I guess, and Prasadam destroyed my material life. And like 2.5 months later, I moved in the temple.
And yes, that must have been like such a, whoa, that's it. Temple life, shaved off head,
well,
etc.
It's when I was shaving my head, Lochan was shaving my head. He said, Radharani's telling Krishna right now, you're becoming a devotee, and to show mercy on this devotee. It was a big thing in those days, because when I joined, there were maybe 300 Hare Krishna devotees worldwide. So it wasn't like, there's a million yoga groups and, a million devotees. And it was like, so it shocked a lot of people, a lot of friends and family. But for me, it was like, I found it. So what else is there to do? This is it. That's how I felt. And I want to tell a story because it's really interesting. So after the semester was over, I went back for Christmas to Los Angeles. This is like 7 or 8 hours. We're in devotee talk, about 50 rounds. How far is Berkeley from Los Angeles? About 50 rounds. It's the new way to determine how far something is. It was about 50 rounds away. So we drove down. I told my parents, they were completely shocked. And to this day, I remember that I was thinking, if I wait another life, it's going to be the same problem. There's just a new set of parents, and they're going to be shocked also. So, and I'm a brand new devotee, and not even a devotee yet, trying to be. And I'm thinking like this, and I could just see, like, in order to so to speak, dislocate me from all material attachments, Krishna just gives me this way of thinking, which we might think is like really immature or fanatical. But in retrospect, in hindsight, I could say if I didn't think that way, I probably couldn't have done it. I would just, maybe the attachment would have been too strong. I didn't want to hurt them. But if I stayed in university, I would have been miserable. And after I became a devotee, I would have regular nightmares. And these nightmares were I was in college. To me, that was like, it was like sitting and digesting ignorance. That was like, for me, it was just horrible. So my father wanted me to stay in college, and I was like, I couldn't. And that was such a degraded culture at that time that the ashram was like, now we're safe. So that's how it started.
Wow. I love the way you put how distance in rounds, 50 rounds. Actually, one person, Dilip Kumar, is also said, wow, distance measures through rounds of chanting Haribol. That's amazing. And another thing is travel seems to be a key thing here, because your first meeting of Srila Prabhupada, because I gather he was coming to Los Angeles airport, if I'm correct.
Yeah. I didn't.
Please, yeah.
I didn't. I have to give you some context, which is probably difficult for devotees to relate to, but because the movement was so small, when I was going to the temple and we were going to Bhagavad Gita classes, it was Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, but it wasn't clear to me Prabhupada's position within ISKCON and his relationship with all the devotees. You know, I'm just an American who knows nothing about Indian culture. And guru disciple, I didn't understand that. And so, I mean, I can't say I didn't understand it, but I didn't understand much. It was very hazy for me. Prabhupada's position, what is ISKCON? What is this relationship with his disciples? What does that mean? So when I went to Los Angeles, that was at the end of the semester. So that was December of 1969. And then I went to the temple 6 blocks away, right? What else are you going to do? You
Yeah,
want to be,
it's not fun.
and this is the world headquarters. This is the temple to go to. And I brought 2 friends to the temple. It was just amazing. Vishnu Jan Swami will lead these kirtans, devotees bouncing off the walls, ecstatic classes. Call my friend. I said, I'm going back tomorrow. You want to come? He said, no way, I'm not going. I said, why? He said, if I go again, I'll never leave. That's what the temples were like. It was like people would come and say, okay, this is it. There's nothing better. And unfortunately, it was unfortunate for him because then I went back the next day. That's the day Prabhupada was coming. And nobody had told me the night before. They said, would you like to see Prabhupada? So I want to present this context that I didn't fully understand his position. I had decided to become a devotee, but I wasn't chanting 16 rounds every day. And I went back to be with my, I saw my friends, told them to become devotees. And what do your friends do? What do they do in 1969? So I did that. I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that I wasn't fully, I knew when I move in a temple, I would be able to follow. So in that state, I saw Prabhupada. And like many people say when they met Prabhupada, they just started crying. So I started crying. And I heard a story this morning. A devotee named Chintamani, she said when she first met Prabhupada, she was sobbing uncontrollably. And she thought, I need to stop crying. This is embarrassing. She looked around at the other devotees. Every single devotee was crying. So, if you ask them, why are you crying? It's like, what kind of question is that? How can you answer that question? The emotion is so overwhelming. It's not something you're conscious of. But that was the effect that Srila Prabhupada had. There was another story. There was a kirtan in New Vrindavan. And after the kirtan, a devotee was crying. And he said, I looked around and every single devotee was crying. So I think it's important to understand that when there is a pure devotee who carries Krishna in their heart, it's transmitted very powerfully. And this had, I would say, a foundational effect on establishing ISKCON, that Prabhupada's presence was so powerfully transforming that he could start a movement out of nothing. Whereas if we were to do that just by preaching, that's not enough. You need example, you need preaching, but you need that person who has prema, who can just give it. And that's what Prabhupada was doing. And I just want devotees to understand the context. Look at the devotees in New York in 65. There's no ISKCON, there's no senior devotees, nobody knows anything. Nobody's been to India. And all they can understand about Krishna consciousness is what they see in Prabhupada. He has to embody everything. He has to be it. And he embodied it so well. And his presence was so powerful. They were convinced. But think, how could you convince people and you have no context? You have no organization. It's just you. Right. And then we ask ourselves, okay, if I went to some, town in somewhere where there's like a new hippie movement going now, and I walked in, how effective would I be? But I think this is important for devotees to understand. Prabhupada was always praying for us. that was very powerful. And he knew what we were thinking. There's so many stories that he knew what we were thinking. And he, as many devotees will testify, it's like he would endow you with Krishna consciousness when you're in his presence. So it's like the doctor says, eat this diet, but when you go to the office, he gives you the booster shot. So we have Prabhupada's instructions, but in his presence, it was like, oh, I'm feeling different here. Like I feel very transcendental, like nothing in this world is attractive, which is unusual for a young devotee, right?
Yes, 100%.
That's a state. So I think it's important for devotees to understand that was a key element in Prabhupada's success, that Krishna is reciprocating with his desire to help us, to pray for us, and that prema bhakti yahaite, that prema, it's obviously wearing off on us. We're getting affected by it. So to speak, we're like, he's planting the seed, but he's got this amazing nutrients in our soil. So when he plants the seed of his instruction, it's just sprouting like crazy. It's growing like crazy. Whereas maybe if I said the same instruction in the same environment, it may not grow in everyone's heart, or it may take much longer to grow.
Prabhu, there's some people are here, they're saying, okay, it was right timing. It was right timing that Srila Prabhupada came, because at that time the hippie movement, etc. But what's really nice here, what you're saying is, timing's there, but the prema is what really hit.
Yes.
All of you,
and also,
right?
Yeah, that's there, but yeah, definitely. But regarding timing, I think it's the same point, or maybe another aspect of the same point. If Prabhupada came a year earlier, it would be very slow. He came. The hippie movement started in 1965. That's when I first became aware of it. In 1965, I went with a friend to Haight-Ashbury. His sister lived there, and when I got to Haight-Ashbury, I didn't know about it. I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? All these long-haired people walking around, spaced out, dressing differently, talking philosophy, and interested in India. And so Prabhupada walked into that transition. Like, so when you look at that, it's like, okay, the pure devotees coming. This movement is meant to spread around the world. We have to do something to create fertile soil for it. Come in 1958, get some old ladies in Upper East Side of New York, Manhattan, some rich ladies, maybe if you're lucky, and what would happen? Of course, some people will say, well, he's a pure devotee, he'd make anything, because you need, the more the soil is fertile, the better. The fall of communism. There's so many things that Krishna can do. Even one time Prabhupada was asked, about preaching in a certain country. He said, first, there'll have to be major destruction before those people become Krishna conscious. So, there are forces, that Krishna is also using. And the way I see it is, okay, here's a pure devotee. Krishna says, okay, let's make things happen. So we think the hippie movement was because we were revolting against materialistic society, but another way of looking at it is because Prabhupada's coming and we had to be ready.
Fantastic. And so
transcendental.
That's seeing him and the way he had impact on you. And yes, Srila Prabhupada was offering prema, which struck people. And of course, it struck you so much that in March 1970, you took initiation. And there was one thing that really struck out for me when I was hearing about this, that I think his name was Gaga Muni Prabhu. He gave you a little prep talk, right? And then he said, don't try to make spiritual advancement, just try to please Srila Prabhupada. And this really impacted you. When I read it, it really impacted me. So could you please, on this and this whole initiation time, how that felt?
Well, I'll give some interesting context to this initiation. I had moved into the temple. I had been coming to the temple since October. Came back to my parents' home in December for Christmas vacation. Yes. After that, sometime in January, maybe mid-January, I came back to Berkeley, maybe first or second week, to get rid of my things, take care of business, and move in the temple. So I moved in the temple about January. I figure second, third week of January is when I moved in the temple. So one day around middle of March, they called me in the office and they said, "You're going to go to Los Angeles to get initiation." I was like, okay. Like it didn't mean anything to me. It was like, "You're going to go to Los Angeles. There's a festival there." Okay, sounds good. Because we do that all the time. We go to different festivals. So we're having a festival, 100 miles from here. We would go to it. We had all kinds of festivals. So I was like, okay, whatever. To me, it was just like, I don't know anything. And okay, that's what you do. That's what you do. I didn't understand anything about initiation. Maybe I can't say I didn't understand anything, but in retrospect, I wasn't asking for it. It was just, oh, you're supposed to be initiated. So, of course, it was very powerful. I felt very purified. But this story, which Gargamuni told, there's another interesting story that came up in around 1976, and the same thing, but Prabhupada said it. And there was a godbrother who was Prabhupada's secretary, and he was so busy, he didn't have time to chant more than 4 rounds. And he didn't have any time to read. But he was really qualified secretary. And Prabhupada really liked him. And he said, "Srila Prabhupada, he was a GBC, can I go back on my GBC zone because my spiritual life is going downhill. I don't have time to chant my rounds. I don't have time to read." Prabhupada said, "No, I need you. Stay. I will maintain your spiritual life." And Prabhupada didn't say you have to chant 16. Of course, nobody should get the idea that it's okay not to. But Prabhupada said, for him, I will maintain you. I need your service. And he was having a really hard time. The other problem was he felt too intimate with Prabhupada. He said it was really hard for him. I was so intimate with him.
Wow.
So he begged, and Prabhupada said, okay. But during class, this is when Prabhupada told him that. He said, do not try to make spiritual advancement. Just try to please your spiritual master. He said the same thing in class, and he looked right at him. And unfortunately, after he left, within a few weeks, taking up his service, he left his sannyas, he left ISKCON. He's still a devotee. I think he's passed on now. I mean, he came back, but it was interesting. And Prabhupada said, I will maintain your spiritual life. And I think this is so significant because sometimes you're trying to figure out what the right thing to do is. And sometimes you neglect trying to figure out, well, what would Prabhupada want? Because if you just look at the Shastra, well, this is what the Shastra says. Okay, I know what the Shastra says. But wait a minute, is that what would please Prabhupada? Is that what he wants? Is that what he taught us? Is that what the example is? Because, I don't want to sound like a heretic, but what's in Shastra is not always applicable exactly. And Prabhupada could turn things upside down and completely contradict. Like one time, Prabhupada told Harikesh, you should go preach on the Iron Curtain in Eastern Europe. And he said, Prabhupada, there's nothing to eat. I have to eat meat. And Prabhupada said, then eat meat. And he said, what about my consciousness? He said, damn your consciousness.
Wow.
So you have to understand the heart of Prabhupada and what he wants before, you could, so right now, right in that situation, Prabhupada's contradicting himself. Sometimes one boy wrote to Prabhupada, he said, my wife's more advanced than I am. And Prabhupada said, then she can be your spiritual master, you listen to her. Where in the books does it say that the wife is the guru of the husband? That's another heretical statement. If you said that now, devotees would be up in arms. But Prabhupada didn't say that. But we need to know, we need to look at, well, what would Prabhupada want? What's the goal of Krishna consciousness? What's the real purpose here? Is the real purpose just to enforce a rule? And I think I've seen a lot of times when there's controversies, occasionally, the desire of Prabhupada is not the topic on the table. It's like, what does Shastra say? And I think that's dangerous. And not only dangerous, it's wrong. So pleasing Prabhupada, that's what, like, should we do this or do that? Well, why don't, and then you bring in Shastra, you bring in history, you bring in sociology. So why don't you just ask, what do you think Prabhupada would want? Wouldn't that solve it? Should I wear tilak? Shouldn't I? Does Prabhupada like it when you wear tilak? He does. Okay, it solves it. If he likes it, I wear it. If he doesn't like it, I don't wear it. Obviously, in some situations, it may not be proper to wear it, preaching in certain environments. But, in other situations, we could philosophize so many things, but we need to find out, well, what is Prabhupada like? So I think that's, obvious, but sometimes it seems to get swept under the rug for some reason or another in the discussion of philosophy. So something to consider.
There's one comment that came through from Vinod Manjari Dasi. She said, order of spiritual master supersedes all things.
Yes.
So like what you're saying, to make Srila Prabhupada happy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm ready.
No, just regarding that story.
Yes.
Where Srila Prabhupada said, he's saying, look, I'm going to do, the Iron Curtain and about meat eating. How when you heard this, how, like you're explaining it now to us, how did that affect you? Like, how did you able to console it and think, make Srila Prabhupada happy?
Well, after I fainted when I heard it and recovered, I remembered a statement that Prabhupada said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to open a hostel in London, and he said, well, if we have to serve meat, then we'll serve meat. Obviously not cow. If that's the way they're going to hear, if we can get them to hear. I just thought this is the essence of bhakti, because Prabhupada said that one of the problems with some of his godbrothers is they were too attached to principles, and they didn't want to sacrifice the principles for what was the best for preaching. So he said, you can be attached to sense gratification, but you can also be attached to devotional principles if they get in the way. And sometimes we hear about, devotees do great austerities, but they weren't asked by their spiritual master to do it. There was a devotee who was chanting 64 rounds, but he never asked Prabhupada if he could do it. And Prabhupada didn't want him to do it. And so there was a discussion about him. And one of the leaders said, Prabhupada, he wants to chant 64 rounds. And Prabhupada, he wasn't associating with devotees. He was living in Mayapur separate. And so he could chant 64. He stayed separate. And Prabhupada said something really interesting. He said, as soon as I say I want, that's material desire. Because if the I want is not what your guru wants, even though the I want seems spiritual, then by nature, if it's displeasing your guru, it's not spiritual. There's this funny story. Oh, this is so funny. Shruti Kirti goes to Mangalarti, and he never goes to Mangalarti. He's always with Prabhupada because Prabhupada may need him. And he's thinking, usually Prabhupada doesn't call me at that time. And that very day he goes, Prabhupada knows everything. Where's Shruti Kirti? He sends Harikesh to the temple. Prabhupada wants to see you. And Prabhupada said, you're my personal servant. You're 24/7 with me. My order to you is, do not go to Mangalarti. And I joke and I say, I guess a lot of devotees wish they got that order, right?
Yeah.
And he told another story. He wanted to go on book distribution because he saw how blissful the Sankirtan devotees were. And Prabhupada said, you can go, but without my blessings. And we know the blessings you get from Prabhupada are enormous when you distribute his books. And here he's saying, you can go without my blessings. So, this is not something to be taken lightly, that if we can If we can please Srila Prabhupada, we can please our spiritual master. It's like everything else comes from that. And if you do something spiritual, which is displeasing, it's not really spiritual, essentially. It just looks like it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And our main thing here is to help. We should try and please Srila Prabhupada. Talking about pleasing Srila Prabhupada, I came across a lovely picture where definitely there's somebody's pleased Srila Prabhupada. I'm going to just put it on. There you are. I think just behind Srila Prabhupada, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
On our left-hand side, looking up. Can you please enlighten us what is happening here? It's such a nice picture. And I was always thinking, look, Srila Prabhupada's so happy here. What's happening?
It's regarding book distribution. This is Los Angeles, 1967. Excuse me, 1976.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this, for me personally, is all the places that Prabhupada walked in Los Angeles were the places I grew up. And I used to go to the beach there. I used to surf there. And now we're walking on the same beach. And at that point, my parents lived like 2 blocks away from there. So that was also special for me to, be walking with Prabhupada at the very places I grew up, spending my summers. Anyway, there was a lot of competition in the book distribution. And Prabhupada was firing the flame of competition. And as the competition grew, devotees were distributing more books. Oh, so-and-so distributed 100 big books. Let's distribute 108. It was like that. There's this flame of competition. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was the most competitive, and he wanted to win everything. And he was almost viciously competitive. That was his nature, but once he won, it was like, okay, he's not going to walk around like I'm number one. It wasn't, like that. It's just, he's competitive by nature. He has to win. And once he wins, it's like, he's very nice and cordial with all the people that lost and so forth. And one devotee was describing how all over South America, people are getting books, because they're getting them to the airport and they're taking them to all these cities and they're getting all these letters from all over South America. And that was Hridayananda Maharaj's own. And Rameshwar says, just see the preaching of Hridayananda Maharaj, or just see the book distribution, something like that, glorifying Hridayananda Maharaj. And Prabhupada said, don't speak so loudly, or don't speak like that. Tamal will have a heart attack. So Prabhupada was just playing. He knew Tamal Krishna Maharaj's attitude, and he loved to joke. And he, book distribution, it was the most pleasing thing to him. So he was so happy that so many books are being distributed. And he loved Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And part of that love is to say things like that, to joke with him. And so everybody knew Tamal Krishna Maharaj was competitive. So as soon as Prabhupada said that, it was like, oh, Prabhupada hit the nail on the head, and everybody just started cracking him. It was so funny.
It's so nice. No, it's lovely to see. Thank you for,
I think another thing what this story demonstrates is maybe a side of Prabhupada that not everyone has seen or is aware of. The more human side, and here's the more human side. Even though he's with his disciples, he's the guru. But we're just walking. It's not formal. It's not in the temple. It's not on the stage. So, he's often sarcastic, say sarcastic things like that. And he would often joke and make fun. That was his nature, So like every spiritual master has a nature. They have the nature of guru, Sakshat Hari, representing the Shastra and so forth. But they also have their nature. And so a lot of times Prabhupada would be funny and would joke like that and just throw his opinion, out about things. It's not like Shastra, just like, well, in my opinion, they didn't do this, because they couldn't have. And I'm like, okay, so there was that, you think of a sadhu, you don't think the sadhu is like telling jokes. right? Imagine Jesus telling jokes to his disciples. Nobody thinks like that. But, Krishna's the funniest. Krishna's joking all the time. And so we have that nature. So that's also there sometimes. And that endeared us to Prabhupada, that joking.
No, thank you so much for sharing. That's it's lovely for me personally. When I read "What Is the Difficulty" by Shrutikirti Prabhu, it helped me to get closer to Srila Prabhupada, and it's nice that we're speaking to yourselves and getting that, should we say, the other side, where we might be getting, should we say, instructions and teachings, but now we're seeing the human side of Srila Prabhupada only through yourself. So thank you for that.
That human side had a really powerful effect on devotees. There's a devotee I was listening this morning. She said her daughter died at the age of 8. She had taken something. She's to this day not sure. This was 50 years ago or 40 years ago. Taken some poison or some medicine. And Prabhupada said, you can put her body in the Jamuna. She had died in Vrindavan. And then Prabhupada had given a garland, his garland or a garland that he had, and he gave it to someone to put on this girl. And the mother was so touched. She said, when that happened, he said, all my lamentation went away. I felt so cared and loved by Srila Prabhupada. So another devotee told another story. Prabhupada had a garland. He took the garland off, and he told his servant, give one flower to everybody in the airport, every devotee in the airport. So these things really, they really touch devotees. There was personal affection. It's not, just a position. The guru is not just a position, but is a person full of affection. So that was very important. The personal side had made a big difference in the lives of, I think, all of us, because we felt so much love and we wanted to reciprocate, and that's what motivated us.
So coming back to yourself, because after your initiation, you went on to help the other temples, for example, Vancouver, going different places to assist in building those temples and helping to take it to the next level. Can you yourself, at that time of that traveling and, should we say, helping to grow the ISKCON movement, was there any correspondence or some instruction Srila Prabhupada gave you personally that you felt, that's really helped you in your spiritual life?
Well, you can imagine. I just turned 20. I've been a devotee 8 months, and they asked me to be in charge of a temple. So, and I personally, I'm more into philosophy and teaching than leadership and management, and music. I love music. I love kirtan. So, this was a good movement for me in terms of teaching and singing. It satisfied me, but the management side, I didn't feel, I was okay. I could do it. I didn't feel special. I didn't feel like this was the best thing I could offer. And in many ways, because I was young and untrained, I felt incapable. And Prabhupada said that the way you approach something for which you feel incapable is to feel incapable. He said it's good. But then you pray to Krishna to give you the capability. And you feel like, well, Krishna, this is basically what Prabhupada said. Krishna, if you don't give me the intelligence, if you don't give me the capability, I can't do this service. Everything is going to be messed up. And then Prabhupada said, and he was basically defining what humility is and how you become empowered by your humility. So we used to adopt that. I mean, we had to adopt that because, we have a temple in Vancouver. It's a major city in North America. And, this little 20-year-old new bhakta who just got initiated, 6 months earlier, is now in charge of one of Prabhupada's temples. That's like big responsibility. So that's how I felt all the time. Krishna, help. I want to tell one other story because it
Please.
relates to the story. Because Prabhupada told this to me. My father is an artist. And we had a Bridge Basi poster, and we wanted painting for the temple. And I said, could you paint this? And he said, well, I've never painted anything like that. I said, well, Krishna will help you. He said, okay, I'll try. It came out, okay, better than he thought. And after he did it, he said, well, I guess you're right. Krishna did help me. And my father became an atheist when my mother died. After my mother died, he had a horrible death. He became an atheist. But he would always say when he met me, he said, you remember that painting I did? Yeah, that was difficult, but you said Krishna will help me, and he did. So that instruction that Prabhupada gave me, it came by disciplic succession in my father, and it stayed in his consciousness that, I can't do this, but Krishna will help me. Okay. So it's a beautiful instruction for all of us, As long as you feel unqualified, then you're in the position to be empowered. Some people think if you feel unqualified, you can't do anything. But it's actually when you can do something. It's arrogance is what blocks you. And that's why Prabhupada said I never felt qualified. It was only my Guru's mercy. I'm not qualified. So that your thinking that you're unqualified becomes your qualification to be empowered. So that was an important instruction.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I want to come on to, yourself. You've been, you can see the inspiration that Srila Prabhupada's had on you. The way you are helping others in their Krishna conscious journeys. You're a spiritual master in our movement as well. And you are, your disciples, you're, connecting with others outside as well. And through this, you have taken that inspiration of writing books as well. So one of them, as you probably can see on Mahatma Prabhu's top right-hand corner when we're looking, is Japa affirmations and these books. So just on that book itself first, how did that come about? Because you've got Srila Prabhupada on that, of course, and so I gather it's something to do with Prabhupada. But please, if you could, that'd be great.
I began teaching how to improve japa maybe 15 years ago, more or less. And it was born out of two things. One thing, teaching, but a principle about teaching that don't teach something you don't follow. So that was my principle. If I'm going to teach it, I have to follow it. So I have to be teaching from my own experience. So it was my own experience with japa, how I was traversing the path to better japa. And the affirmations really were just principles that came up that Krishna was revealing to me during those years of developing and teaching the japa workshops and retreats. And so we took the principles and we put them into affirmations based on one of the huge realizations, and not just realization, but experience I had, that when most devotees start chanting, they just chant. They don't prepare themselves. They don't adjust their consciousness, like you would if you're going to give a lecture to 10,000 people. You just wouldn't walk out on the stage and go, hey, everybody, and be joking with your friends behind stage. You'd obviously be preparing, getting your mind and heart ready. So it's the same thing when you go on the altar, you say prayers, you get your mind and heart ready. So I thought, this is what we have to do with japa. So the affirmations are meant to put the devotees in the optimal mood for chanting, make the adjustment. And it's just rewritten principles in the form of affirmations. And affirmations just have an effect on making that mental adjustment so that when you start chanting, you're in the best position you could possibly be in to go deeply. So from the feedback I've gotten, it's been extremely effective. And if the book's available on Amazon, if you haven't read it can, just based on the testimonies I've been given and my own self, it's helped me tremendously following these. It can make a significant difference in the quality of your japa. And if your japa improves, your spiritual life takes off, like a rocket ship. So it was also born out of the experience and realization of seeing devotees maybe not taking their japa seriously enough. And I wanted them to understand japa on a deeper level, because a lot of devotees they didn't like chanting japa, and I understood they're not going deeply enough. So I wanted to help them go deeper so they could get a deeper experience so that they would relish chanting japa. and that would make a major difference in their life. So I that's the hope with this book, that it gives you a taste by putting you in the optimal position for chanting.
That's and then everybody, just so you're aware, there's a little link that takes you to the Japa affirmations book, and also to the others. So Prabhu, I just created a little link just so you've probably seen what's that link. So this link takes directly to the Amazon page where Prabhu's books are, and there's some of the other books there that you can see as well that he has authored. So it's www.bit.ly/Mahatma Das books, and I'll put that link also in the comments for anybody that wants to see, and just go there, check them out, and thank you for that. And I think it's really important that we try to imbibe, especially when it comes to japa, try to go deeper in our japa. So this book, I've heard a lot about it, and a lot of people have actually sweared by the book. So please do check it out. And
here's my advertisement. Here's my advertisement.
Yes.
If you own beads, you need this book.
There we go. If you own beads.
Who's the book for? Anyone with japa beads.
There you go. And actually, there's another area you're doing these books there, and it's about self-help. It's helping others to go forward in their spiritual life. And yes, on that note, you also are doing, should we say, courses. Like I said at the start, you do courses. Can those that want to get involved in your courses, where's the best place for them again? Would they be your website, what I'm putting up here at the moment, which is mahatmadas.com?
My website, you may not find it all there because you have to navigate, but we do have 2 forgiveness courses. And
yes,
you have the address for that, the forgiveness course?
This foundercharya.com, is it? Oh no, sorry, apologies.
No.
Yes, I'll bring that up as you speak about it. I will try to.
So there's a site. We have we have a foundational course and we have a more in-depth course. And this is something that I've developed over the last decade or more, maybe 12, 13 years, maybe 15 years, I can't remember. To my whole idea was, we have a philosophy, but often to understand how to put that philosophy into practice, it's not so clear. We're not always good at it. And sometimes we need to develop a structure and a process. So that's what I did with the forgiveness course, and a way to understand it that's maybe not so apparent by reading our books. So that was my ambition, not only with this course, but with many courses. So bhaktieducation.teachable.com. That's
it. I'm just going to try. I've got it here now, and then I put in the actual course itself. So please, it's coming up on a banner right now. Here we go. So it's bhaktieducation.teachable.com. And then, of course, the course, that transformation through forgiveness, all the courses are there. So please do check them out.
And there's a self-esteem course.
Yes.
And so basically what I've done over the last 10, 15 years is try to break down bhakti into more practical application. Because I'm just concerned that life happens and not all of us are really dealing with life well, like resentment. How well do we all deal with it? We need help. How do some devotees need help with low self-esteem? False ego. We need help processing that. Relationships, marriage, the mentality of following vows, things of this nature. So I've studied self-development and psychology to some degree, and then take Krishna conscious principles within a context that can be really powerful in solving a lot of these problems. So that's kind of what I'm most dedicated to doing now.
That's so this is the 2 places you can go onto this channel. What I've got right up on front right now, www.bhaktieducational.teachable.com. Also, like we mentioned before, for the overall aspect of the different things, and everything is here at www.mahatmadas.com.
Yeah,
So
you'll connect. You can connect to SoundCloud from there, and I have maybe 35 seminars or so on topics which are important things, things that we think about. Not just Prabhupada, not just Guru Tattva, not just philosophy, but other things. How to deal with guilt, why we don't work well together. Understanding like the stuff that happens to all of us. So I think you might find, beliefs, how to deal with beliefs, how beliefs affect you. Self-love, what does that mean? Self-care, is that part of our philosophy? So, and a lot of that is in the book, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti. So if you like that kind of, if you like that kind of approach to Krishna consciousness, you'll also find it in that book, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti.
So it's the red one there that we can see on top of it right now. There was one thing when we were talking, and I was talking about the books, and you said, Jagannath, there's one book I want everybody to check out. And you put it here.
Yes. This is I want to talk a little bit about this book because there's a problem now that I just became aware of in the last few days. This book about Srila Prabhupada was commissioned by the GBC to be written by Rabindra Swarup Prabhu. And it came out in 2015. And it establishes Prabhupada's position within ISKCON, exactly what his position is, what is the position of his followers, the Diksha Guru, Siksha Guru. And I started asking devotees, have you read this? And most devotees say, no, I haven't read it. This book was written so that everyone would read it. And I've just found out it's available in Spanish, it's available in Russian, it's available in Hindi. So I can give you those links if you need, if anyone is interested.
Yeah.
But this book was actually written to as a foundational document to unify ISKCON and to establish once and for all what is Prabhupada's position, what is the position of the Diksha Gurus, what is the position of the Siksha Gurus, and so forth. So it's extremely important that we all read this book. So that's why we're putting it there. You should all read this book. It's an amazing book. It'll give you a deep insight into Gaudiya Math, the history, what Prabhupada did, how he represented Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And it's just, you'll appreciate Prabhupada infinitely more after you read this book.
And in this book, I've just put the link on the comment section for everybody. So it's in the comments, and also it's here right now. You can see it here, www.founderacharya.com/book. And when you go on there, you'll able to see the different languages, etc. So please check this out. It's like Srila Prabhupada said, books are the basis, if I'm right. And so it's important that we actually take that time to read. So I thank you, actually, Mahatma Prabhu. When I was asking you about books, etc., the first thing you were saying is, I want people to read Srila Prabhupada's books. I want you to, share this. So I thank you for reminding us this. And it's very, yeah.
You're also, what is probably you all know, that in the height of book distribution, occasionally Prabhupada would say, I'm writing these books for you, not just for selling, not just for making business. Of course, he wanted the books distributed, there's no question. But he didn't want them distributed by devotees who didn't read them. And he said, if you don't read them and you distribute them, you're a cheater, because they'll ask you, these were Prabhupada's words, they'll ask you, it says, the cover, the Lord in the heart, or whatever the cover says. And said, what does that mean? He said, I don't know. I just sell them. I don't read them. He said, then you're a cheater. So it's my realization that Prabhupada's books are one of the main contributions to our going back to Godhead, one of the main tools. And so if you minimize the use of that tool, you minimize your opportunity. You make it difficult on yourself. And Prabhupada's books will make it easy for you to become Krishna conscious. Without them, Prabhupada's books is one of the greatest weapons against Maya. And if we're not taking advantage of it, we're like trying to fight Maya without the proper weapons. So I think that's a good analogy. And that's how I would like to communicate the importance of it, because life happens and we're all busy, which is a symptom of the modern age. Unfortunately, we're sometimes too busy, so busy we don't have time to read Prabhupada's books, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to also say, if anybody would like to support, because as you know, Prabhu does courses, live courses, and much more. There's so many projects he's doing right now to help with the preaching practices going on right now to get Krishna consciousness out there to others. So on the actual Mahatma Das webpage, there's a section saying donate. If you go on the donate, you will then able to get two options. One, donate via PayPal, which I'm putting scrolling down, that's coming up right now, or other ways of donating. So please check this out and see if you could contribute to this, because I think the nice thing what I find Mahatma Prabhu is that you're really going out there in different ways and thinking outside the box as well. I've seen some of your videos, the way you're doing it, and it's for me, I've been very inspired by that. So I want to say thank you.
We have a video every day.
I know.
If you like to receive it, it's on my Facebook page. HG Mahatma Das is the Facebook page, or my YouTube page. And this is all about like real life, and the things that I try to talk about, the things that are on everyone's mind that aren't talked about in Bhagavatam class that much, because Bhagavatam class is a different context. But there's so many things on our mind, challenges we have, and so I deal with those. And I think most of you will find at least some of the videos valuable. They're only 3 to 5 minutes, so it's not a big gamble if you don't find anything valuable one day.
Yeah, they're really good. They're really good. I've been watching them. I've been seeing how you've been doing. So no, I also finally, just so everybody is, in case you're just joining us right now, I want to just remind you that these books by Mahatma Prabhu can be available on Amazon. So www.bit.ly/Mahatma Das books. So if you just put that in, it'll take you straight there.
I wanted to just mention one more thing about what we're working on, because you mentioned donations. People are like, well, why should I?
Please, yes.
We're working on something which we call devotee support. And this is so inspiring. I've been working on many things, but this is one of the most inspiring things that I'm working on. So the way devotee support works is you'll go to a website and there'll be different pictures with different topics. So it might be forgiveness, japa, marriage, relationships, cooperation, leadership, dealing with guilt, low self-esteem, vows, so many things. You'll click in there, and then there will be documents on that topic, audio, video on that topic, and where appropriate, or when I have time, there will be actual like proper online courses on that topic. So we already have 3 more online courses ready to come out very soon, aside from the 3 we already have: vows, sexual purity, and we have an introductory course for people who are just beginning. So you'll go, then you go into another section if you want to take the online course. But the really nice thing about this is there'll also be groups in there. So everyone who wants to get more into it or needs more support will have these groups where we can share with one another our realizations, our troubles. And we've already established a sexual sobriety support group.
Yes.
This has been tremendous. And so from this sexual sobriety support group, we were thinking, we need a deeper format where we can have all the documents, all the online courses, everything in one place. And we found a platform for this. And then we decided, well, why limit it to sexual purity? Everything I'm teaching and other devotees are teaching, you can all go here and we can have support groups for this. And we've been helping so many devotees with sexual challenges. Once we started the support group about 2 months ago, this is having amazing effects, because this is how you overcome challenges that are addictive in nature through the association with other devotees. So this is coming. Of course, it's a lot of work, but that's one of the things we use donations for. To get all this work done, not just to pay for websites. That's not, but the actual work. At some point, we just don't have enough manpower. We have to be able to, give some devotees money to live. Otherwise, they don't have time to do all this. So that's a very big project. But I think it's going to be one of the best contributions that I could make to the devotees. And the reason I did this was I started going out the non-devotee world in speaking in a way that I felt was very relevant to the people, to where they're at, accommodating, at the same time not watering it down, and it was having a good result. And I thought, oh, now these people are becoming devotees, but we have what are we going to do? How are we going to train them? That's always maintenance is always the problem. And I thought, stop, let's slow that down. Let's put the foundation strong before we build the second floor. So that's where this came from. So this is so beautiful, because as we're inviting people to become devotees, once they become devotees, all the things, hopefully in the future, everything that they're dealing with, everything they need to know will be there. There'll be a course, there'll be documents, there'll be audio, little videos, discussion groups, everything. So that's exciting. I think it's exciting.
Wow. No, it's so exciting. And I just, I want to, everyone, please do check it out. And mahatmadas.com, I think, go there, the donate button is there, and check out how you could be of help. And if you would like to render some service as well, because there seems to be a lot of projects on the go right now, please contact through there. And I've been told that, apologies, I've missed out the S on the bit.ly link. So I've just posted it again to everybody. So you've got it there, Mahatma Das Books. Okay. So I put it, so it's on there so everybody knows. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Mahatma Prabhu, for coming on and sharing your experiences with Srila Prabhupada, your realizations about Srila Prabhupada, and how Srila Prabhupada has, inspired you to do these different plethoras of services that you're doing, and taking your time. You're not well at the moment, and I know you're told about your voice, and you still came on and gave your association. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time on this.
My pleasure. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for your service as well.
Thank you, Prabhu. And thank you, everybody. And please do tune us next week. The poster will be going out soon. Hare Krishna.
Jai Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada.